everyone. I'm Ekta and we are Read A Kitaab. And I'm extremely excited to be here today, to interview Ruchira Gupta for her book I Kick and I Fly on this month when we celebrate International Women's Day. And I think I'm extremely delighted to be having here, her today. Okay, let me also viewers so that we can talk to all of you, and we will be having Ruchira shortly with us. So yeah, stay tuned, and maybe in another 2 minutes or so we will have Ruchira, and then we will begin. Hi Abhishek, how are you?
Hi, I'm good,
So
and I
Abhishek,
want
I'm
to,
very excited to talk to Ruchira today.
yes. And is it serendipitous that it is International Women's Month and we have the brilliant author and activist Ruchira Gupta with us, and tomorrow is International Women's Day? Oh my God, pinch me, somebody.
Absolutely, and I think Ruchira Gupta is such a brilliant author, as well as a brilliant documentarian, because she's also won the Emmy Award.
Yes.
And I'm going to talk about her once she joins us. I think she's there, and I'm just waiting for Neeraj also to kind of just join us so that we can have him as well. Okay,
So
let me just invite Neeraj and
I,
yeah. So I'm also kind of inviting Ruchira. Hi Neeraj, how are
uh,
you?
Hi, Ekta, hi, Abhishek.
hi,
How are you?
Neeraj. I'm good, I'm good.
Great, and I'm just going to invite Ruchira now because I know we all can't wait to, listen to her. And this is such an amazing time that we have her here today. So I think she will join. I've just sent her an invite. So Ruchira, if you could just accept the invite and join us. So I was kind of thinking about so many things when I was reading this book, and I was very shocked and surprised, by the kind of a world we are living in, and we have no idea. I mean, we do know about it, but the kind of statistics and the kind of work that her organization Apne Aap is doing is exemplary, and I
Correct.
think that is also kind of very powerful message that that the book also sends, as well as okay, Ruchira is saying I can't see the invite. I have sent you a request. Okay, let me just see. Okay, if I can add her. Um,
So really looking
allow
forward
me a
to,
second.
yes, really looking forward to having this conversation with Ruchira because there are so many questions, and like you rightly said, Ekta, the statistics are so shattering that it's really mind-boggling. I mean, the kind of
Yeah.
industry it is, and we are actually calling it an industry. So, like always, I'm getting ahead of myself, and I have so many questions for her. Um, but it is heartbreaking, and I think it's an important conversation. It is not just about the book that she has written, but also the work that she has done extensively. The book is
Absolutely.
one of the products of what she has done.
Yeah, and I'll come back to that. But Ruchira, if you are able to hear us, I am not able to accept your invite, or I'm sending you an invite, but I think you're not getting that. So would you please mind going out of this live and then
Joining
joining
again.
again, so that so that I can just pull you in, because what the message that I'm getting is Ruchira is not able to join. So if you can just go out of this Instagram, you can just pull yourself out and then come again. I think that will help us in looping you in the video. So yeah, Neeraj, and like you were talking about how important things that we have to speak to Ruchira today, because it's not just about the book, but it is about so many other things and so much work that she's doing, her organization is doing, and the brilliant work she's doing in human trafficking. I think there is so much to talk to her, and I'm sure at the end of it we all would want to do something for the cause. And I'm sure, I mean, we all are looking forward to understand from her that how we could be participate, or be add value to the whole program that she has, and the whole agenda that she is having. Let me just kind of try
I
again to
just
pull her in.
I would like to say it's going to be a very heavy discussion today.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hi,
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 Ruchira.
Ruchira.
How are you?
Hi, so
Hi,
glad to
hi.
see you.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Ruchira. So glad to see you. Are you somewhere out?
I am because I think the signal was so bad where I was that I had to move to even get. And
Office.
someone's playing Antakshari right near me, or exchanging some poetry. I'm in a park,
Oh, amazing.
like right
Oh,
outside.
nice.
Oh,
But at least, I'm with you all because the signal suddenly went off in my room.
All right. No, no,
We are
no, no,
glad
not a
to
problem. And
have
we
you.
are so glad.
yeah. Very happy to have.
Yeah, we are
Happy
so glad
Women's
to have you. And
Day.
Happy Women's
happy Women's Day.
Day.
Happy
Yeah.
International Women's Day. Yes,
It's such a
Yeah,
great
so
kickoff.
indeed, indeed.
indeed.
And I still remember the first time I spoke to you. You were traveling in Delhi in the car, and I'm so excited that all of our talks are outdoors. So
It's true.
that's
This
interesting.
time, this time it's in, I'm near Bangalore, and again, as you said, it's outdoors.
It must be a lovely weather then in Bangalore.
Little muggy, but it's fine.
Okay, okay.
All right. All right. So hi everyone who have joined us just now and who's there listening to all of us. Thank you for joining us. We have with us Ruchira Gupta, who's the author of I Kick and I Fly, but that is just one part of her sing. And Abhishek is also posing the book, so you got to look at that. The cover page is brilliant. Also, she's an Emmy Award winning documentarian. Her documentary has won Emmy Award, and she's also New York University professor. She's also an advisor in the United Nations, and also she has her NGO, which is Apne Aap. So she's the founder and president of that NGO, which works to stop human trafficking, and lot of wonderful work that the NGO is doing, and we're going to talk to Ruchira about it. So Ruchira, just to begin, first of all, thank you very very much for joining us and writing this book, because this is such an important narrative, not just a story of Heera and Mai and Salman and all the protagonists, those who are in the book, but it is such an important narrative, and people should know this. So just wanted to kick off or start off this discussion by asking you that you were doing some incredible work. Your documentary won the Emmy, and then how did you suddenly decide to come up with this book and write the entire story, with lot of real life events, and how did it all happen?
So, basically what happened was that COVID struck the world and everybody was feeling very sad and hopeless. And I was trying to get food to the kids I was sponsoring through my NGO who were in school but were sent back home, and they were sent back home to the red light area. And, you know, everything seemed to be falling apart. And then I realized that the reason I was able to.
Okay, I think there is a glitch at her end in the network. Okay, I thought it was me. But yeah, for those who
Terrible.
all have joined us,
Can you hear me, or is the signal really bad?
yes, I mean the signal went off, but I think
So
now we can hear you.
I'll just repeat. So basically, I it was lockdown, and kids that I had been sponsoring from red light areas in school were sent back home because the schools closed down. There was no food at home. At the same time, what happened was that. These were the very kids who became my community mobilizers to make sure that when I sent the food, they received the food and got it into the homes of all the women living in the red light area without food. And some of them were even evicted from the houses they lived in and were sleeping on benches. And also some, didn't even have access to fresh air or water, where they said they were selling their gold chains. And the reason I was able to build a supply chain from factory owners and transporters and shopkeepers to these very vulnerable populations was because of the students from the red light area that I was sponsoring in school and college. They were back home and they said, Ruchira Di, we will do it. We will come forward, make lists, send you the information, receive the truck when it comes from the shop or the factory, put it into different sacks and get it to the people. And I was thinking, this is so remarkable. Here are these kids who've seen so much oppression, so much homelessness, so much poverty, so much hunger. And yet they're coming forward, even at a time when their own lives have been turned upside down, to make sure that food gets to the entire community where they were living in. So then I thought, and there are so many remarkable girls like that in Apne Aap. I thought, at this time of despair and hopelessness, I must share the story of hope with the world. And I chose to focus on one girl because I thought that girl's story was inspiring and wonderful and all of that. She was a real girl, and her name is Heera in the book, who was born in a nomadic tribe which is trapped in intergenerational prostitution. And, where mothers prostitution is passed down from mothers to daughters, and sometimes the fathers and the brothers are the pimps, and the girls are sold when the cattle fair comes to town. The only way out for such girls is if they can get to school, finish school, and get to college, which had never happened in the history of that community for more than 100 years. But when Apne Aap began working, we had opened a hostel, we had opened a community center, and there we had enrolled girls from this community into our hostel. And they were hungry, so we made sure they had midday meals. Then they were homeless, so we made sure that they could fill up forms and get linkages to government programs, which are called schemes for low cost housing. And in these ways, we were able to get the girls connected to food, to education, to housing. But even then, they were bullied in school. They were still hungry if they went to school after the weekend. They were also treated badly by the rest of the town. And even then, their fathers and the local criminals would want to sell the girl as soon as she turned 14. But, and in our own NGO, we faced many problems where the girls would be kidnapped by these traffickers from our hostel. And we had to build a higher wall, or sometimes the girls would be beaten up in school, or, just teased by other boys, etc. So, I thought that, one thing I can do is to make sure the girls can defend themselves if this happens. So I asked a couple who I used to see on the rice fields teaching karate and kung fu to some people that, will you come and teach kung fu and karate to the kids of Apne Aap? And they agreed. And within months, the girls in Apne Aap began to break burning tiles, and they were so good because they came from nomadic backgrounds. So
Yeah.
they were tightrope walkers, they came from families of pehlwans, and suddenly they were able to, win championships, get gold medals, and so I thought, and when the first girl won a gold medal, everyone in Apne Aap rejoiced because the townspeople began to take pride in the girl. Teachers began to treat her better. The boys stopped bullying the girl. The girl began to like herself, and she says, it's a sentence I use in my book also, in I Kick and I Fly, in which I say, my character Heera, who's this 14-year-old girl who wins a gold medal, she says, learning self defense, I learned I have a self worth defending. And, that's how things began to change in Apne Aap, because then all the girls began to fight for themselves. And the mothers began to fight to send their daughters to school, thinking a different future was possible. So during lockdown, when I saw the courage and resilience of many, many more girls like Heera, and I also read that there was a lot of sexual abuse at home because kids were at home, and also unhappiness, loneliness, and body image issues, and also bullying and online grooming and seasoning of kids. I thought, I have a story to share which is full of hope and courage based on reality and which kids can learn from. Because we can talk about issues like bullying, body shaming, sexual abuse, complicated family relationships, betrayals in friendships, and courage and resilience, and how we can take these issues on. I can tell it through a real life story, written as fiction, and maybe parents and kids and students and teachers can all discuss these very taboo issues which are normally so silenced by using my book as a tool, because it's written as an adventure story. It's a cliffhanger in every chapter, as all of you who've read it know. And I thought that this is the way to help and reach even more people than the girls that I have reached through Apne Aap. So that's why I wrote I Kick and I Fly, because I wanted to inspire the world, I wanted to recruit the next generation of activists, and I wanted to give clues to young people to save themselves and trigger a conversation between adults and young people about a subject they don't talk about but need to talk about.
Absolutely. And I think it is such a powerful story based on true events, and also kind of like when you're talking right now, it is giving me goosebumps to, after just listening that what, these girls were going through and their families were going through. And what a brilliant thing to bring to the world, and discuss this so openly, topics which are not talked about. So thank you so much for that, Ruchira. I think on the same lines, Neeraj also has something to ask you when you talked about
Yes.
fiction. And
So you've already partially answered my question. My question was like, why did you choose fiction as your medium of writing this? And so I have one more question attached to it, Ruchira. I was also wondering, like, apart from the protagonist, which other character? Because we are a community of readers, right? So we kind of are reading the story with the protagonist. So as a writer, which other character other than the protagonist actually also surprised you that okay, this was a character that evolved? So, along with the fiction part, I wanted to ask this question as well.
Heera's father, he is the character who surprised me, because he is the one who was willing to sell his daughter to the cattle fair because she had turned 14 and she had attained puberty, right? And he was working for the crime overlord. He was an alcoholic and he used to beat up the mother. And, he thought this is the fate of every nut girl. And that's what he had to do with his daughter. But as the plot progresses, the same father who's beating up the mother, abusing Heera, also slapping her brother who tries to save Heera. And, he, at one point, something changes in him after she wins a gold medal. And I don't want to give the plot away, but at one moment when she's even kidnapped, he is the one who finally goes in and pulls
Yeah.
her out. So, how did this happen? The man who wanted to sell her
yeah,
to the sex traffickers, who then actually tries to save her from the very people he's employed by.
Oh, lovely.
so true.
Thank you so much for that answer.
I would like to just, if I have to digress a bit, I will like to ask you about your documentary, which has won the prestigious award. So, um, how how do you draw parallels between the book and the documentary, or
So, my own journey into this world of sex trafficking was accidental. I used to be a journalist and I was actually researching another story in the hills of Nepal when I came across rows of villages with missing girls. And of course, I had to find the answer to this sort of strange phenomena. So I asked the men who were sitting there drinking tea, playing cards, where the girls were. And their answer changed my life, because they said, "Don't you know they all are in Mumbai?" And so I followed the trail and I found little girls in Mumbai, in the red light district known as Kamtipura. And some of them were even on display in cages and they were locked up in tiny rooms for years, right? And of course, as a woman, as a citizen of India and the world, I was angry, I was sad, I cried, but I was also determined to do something about it. So I did what I knew best, tell the story as a journalist. I ended up making a documentary called The Selling of Innocence. And for those of you who want to watch it, it's on my website, ruchiragupta.com. And when I went in there and made the documentary, I got deeper into the problem. I spent a lot of time in the brothels of Mumbai talking to the women who were mothers and who broke their silence even though they were scared because they wanted to save their daughters. So eventually, the documentary led me to become an activist because I it took me 18 months to make the documentary. It was very dangerous. Someone pulled a knife out at me when I was filming, saying, "I will kill you." And the women in prostitution who were giving me the interviews surrounded me, about 22 women, and told the man that if you want to kill her, you've got to kill us first. And because they had decided they wanted to break the silence. And this man slunk away thinking it was too much trouble to kill 23 women. And so I could not forget all of that. And so when I was on stage, I won an Emmy for the documentary for outstanding investigative journalism in 1996, and I'm on stage, and all the bright lights are there and everyone is clapping, and all I could see were the eyes of the mothers. And so in that instance, I decided that I'm not going to use my Emmy to build a career in journalism, but I'm going to use it to make a difference. So I stepped off the stage and I turned to the lady who'd given me the award. She was Donna Sharela, the US Secretary of Health. And I said, "Can you help me make a difference?" And she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Connect me to people in the UN, connect me to the US senators and Congress people, because I think we need laws which will punish the traffickers and help the women and girls who are either vulnerable or have been trafficked." So, I wanted to shift the blame from the victim to the perpetrator, just like we've done in domestic violence, right? And she agreed and she connected me to people. Those people helped me then to show the documentary at the UN, and I asked for a law which would do that. And when I was showing the documentary and speaking just like I am to you all, I was speaking to like 180 country delegates. In that instance, I made a lot of friends and allies who then helped me to in the passage of what is now called the UN Protocol to End Trafficking in Persons. I did the same at the US Senate. I went and testified as an expert witness on the subject. And again, I showed my documentary and asked for a law in the US which would punish the trafficker and not the victim. And that is now called the Trafficking Victim Protection Act. So, from the selling of innocence, as a journalist, I became an advocate. And once I had finished pushing for the laws, I knew that I could not forget my promise to the women to help them. So I went back to Mumbai and I went to the red light district, and on a bed in a brothel and then on a park nearby, we sat. And I told the women, "Here's the award. I won the Emmy. I've broken the silence. Laws have begun to change. So I've done what I could." And they said, "No, no, no, no. You have to help us more." And I said, "What do you want?" And they said that, you have to help us save our daughters. So I said, "Listen, I'm a journalist. I'm not a doctor, lawyer, social worker. I don't know how to." And they said, "But you have access to money and English and networks, and you can bring that to the table." So I said, "Yes, I can do that. But also you have to fight your own battles, because if you don't fight your battles, nobody else can fight your battles." And they agreed. And I reminded them of the moment when they had saved me. So together we decided to call the NGO we set up Apne Aap, which means self-action in
Right.
Hindi. We called it Apne Aap Women Worldwide because we also wanted to connect with other women in similar situations across the world. And we rented a room in the red light district, hired a teacher, and began with the education of girls. And when the principal objected, saying, "I can't admit children of prostituted women," we went as a women's group, just like the group that had saved me, and begged, cried, cajoled, and the principal relented. And fast forward, you can read the stories of the girls in my book, I Kick and I Fly, right? In Heera. Heera is a composite character of all those girls. And over the years, we have educated more than 3,000
Oh
girls
my
and women
Wow.
God.
who
Oh
were
my God.
Amazing. Really amazing.
Oh my
born
God.
in red light areas and whose mothers had dreamed that they should have a different future. And now they are. One is a police officer, a chef, teachers, computer
Wow.
data entry operators, managers of pizza
Goosebumps.
parlors, gas
Seriously.
stations, it's really amazing. And I'm so proud of these kids, and these are the kids who helped me deliver more than 12 million meals into the most vulnerable populations during the lockdown. When nobody would come forward, they said, no, we have to help those who are even more at risk than us. And this is the
This
I
is so
story that we have
amazing.
to understand.
I mean, I don't know how many can just say after I won the Emmy, okay, forget about the Emmy. I want to do something for humanity. Like, hats off to you,
Hats off to you.
Ruchira.
Absolutely.
This so much
This
respect.
is brilliant.
If anyone
Yeah.
wants to join my campaign, they should, of course, follow me on Instagram. It's Ruchira A. Gupta, as all of you know who are already here. And the other thing they should do is I have a freedom pledge on my website on ruchiragupta.com. And it would be great if they signed the freedom pledge and shared it with others. And of course, we need to create more knowledge and awareness about the subject. So I request everyone to read I Kick and I Fly and play it forward, because you will read I Kick and I Fly, and then I like the way you've covered it in plastic
No,
cover.
it's on the iPad.
Ah,
iPad,
okay,
ebook.
I see. So, and if you will learn about the subject, but if you
Yeah.
share it with someone it might save their life. The leader of the feminist movement in the world, Gloria Steinem, has blurbed my book, and in that she says that this book could save lives. So Alice Walker
Absolutely.
has said that this will cause further the cause of women's emancipation.
Right.
And because
Wow.
today we are having this conversation on the evening of International Women's Day, I
Feminist
want
day.
to give a shout out to those two women. And Ashley Judd has also blurbed the book. It's in the
Wow.
US edition,
Wow.
and she's one of the founders of the Me Too movement. And
Yes.
he has also said that this book is not just about Heera, but all of us, and how we can change the world, and how it will inspire and bring about change. So I think, if we can play it forward and gift the book to any young person we know, any teacher or parent we know, we might generate a conversation which will save a life.
And
Absolutely, Ruchira. Yes.
yeah, so talking about conversations, I actually face this a lot of problem, because what is happening is it's very convenient for a lot of my students to sit in the AC, classrooms, and talk about equality and patriarchy being overthrown or whatever. But the ground reality is very different. And I read this another book called as Night Crawling, which was also shortlisted for the Booker Prize, or was it longlisted? So whether
Long
you
listed.
change the country, whether it is the most powerful country in the world like the USA, or whether it is any other country, the plight is the same. And my question basically was like, how many more such conversations are actually needed? I'm really baffled when my very young students actually come to me and ask this question, that or don't you think girls have more rights, and we have already dismantled patriarchy, because they are all from metropolitan cities.
Yeah, you're right. This feels like such a daunting thing to take on patriarchy. It is so enshrined and so normalized that we don't even realize it when it functions. Even like, men who are the gentlest of men in my life, my father, my husband, they have been conditioned and they will not know it because they think they are feminist men, right? And then I will, of course, have to point it out to them, saying, "No, that's because of your conditioning. It is patriarchy." A comment about some girl who's fat, I say
Mm,
that's fat shaming.
mm,
You can't comment,
right.
and there is no such thing. You can't define what beauty is.
Right.
So, or just things like saying, oh, she's too black, she's too
Right.
white, she's too
Uh,
tall, too thin. These are things which we don't even realize are always messaging given to, especially to girls, about what they should look like, how they should behave, and all of that, right? And so patriarchy is very much, it's like in the air, like the molecules in the air, and we don't know it. And we have to keep calling it out to change it, because if we don't challenge patriarchy, we will normalize hierarchy itself. Because where do
Absolutely.
we learn about hierarchy? The moment we are born at home, it's where we learn that it's all right for one class of human beings to order and one to obey.
mm,
one to seek approval and one to give approval,
Mm.
one to get paid for the work and one not to get paid for work. So gender digs a trench into our brain into which all other hierarchies fall. When we go out into the world, we say, oh, hierarchy is normal. Imagine that. So then we
Mm.
accept race or caste or religion or ethnicity or anything, right? That we begin to think someone is better than somebody
Mm.
else. We also begin to think that the only way to make decisions is through a person who's the head of the family, a character like that, right? So it doesn't matter whether his decisions are right or wrong, but he must be the head because that's what we've got used to that.
Mm.
Yeah,
And so every
absolutely.
time we go out to work, we don't try to build consensus to come to a decision. We don't try to get various inputs to come to a decision. We prefer if one person will take the decision, whether it will be extremely detrimental or harmful, right? And so it actually harms, patriarchy harms both men and women because we end up with a single man's decision rather than a decision from collective experience and collective knowledge. And we end up voting also for such people, who may not be right or wrong, but they are strong.
Mm.
And then that ends up replicating in many different ways, harming us. And we don't even know how to challenge it because that's the norm. So these are very, very important things for us to understand as we go along. And I'm saying this so much because it's Women's Day and we have to start very young to deconstruct this hierarchy, right? So it's like razor blades. We have to tell, because it can also lead to toxic masculinity, right? So boys who
Absolutely.
are conditioned into patriarchy can be bullies, but they can also be rapists, not just bullies, right? And they can believe that they must have impunity. So it can become very, very harmful for a family, for society, for relationships, because the boy may not even realize he's done something wrong. And that's why in I Kick and I Fly, I have two young male characters, yeah? One is Salman, who is Heera's brother. He's 16, 15, going on 16. And her classmate in school, Manish,
Money.
who's 14 plus, yeah, 14 going on 15. Now, one is a bully, right? And that's Heera's classmate. And he says, why do you even bother to come to school? We know you're going to be sold into prostitution. Don't bother. He even steals a egg which is
Yes.
so
She was
precious to her because
rightfully
they're so
hers. Yes.
hungry.
Mm.
Yes. And on the other hand, there is Salman who says that no, you must stay in school. He's willing to even drop out of school himself and become a porter on the railway station so that he can support his family, and maybe his father will change his mind because there's money coming and will not sell his daughter. So here are two characters I've shown, a kind character and a boy on the verge of becoming toxic. But even the boy who's becoming toxic, I show how he can change, what his backstory is, who were his role models, how does he become toxic. So I think there are many and there's a conversation in the book also between Heera and her father after he rescues her, in which she says that, why did you want to sell me if you love all your children? So I won't tell you the answer because you have to read the book.
Read the book. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But Ruchira, such a powerful conversation, and like Neeraj was asking, he pointed out and you talked about patriarchy, smashing what is there ingrained, and men don't even know that it is patriarchy. But coming back to what we were talking about. I mean. Everywhere you talk about the US or you talk about India or you talk about any other country, like Neeraj was telling, I was asking you, the narrative is not changing. Things are almost the same. So what kind of and how many conversations do we need? And also wanted to ask you that like we are readers, and we change after every book, and every there are so many things that we would want to do. So if you would like to talk about, we would be more than happy to hear from you, that as readers, how could we be contributing to the activism that you are involved in? How could we be of help? Or for example, any common person would not have any idea, no matter even if they want to do something, they would not know where to start, how to start. So if you you could also talk about that, that would be really nice, because there'll be a lot of people who would want to be a part of this movement and, kind of add something to, the entire, gang, I would, want to call it, and the entire, tragedy that we are facing.
So, the one thing I want to remind you is that actually change has happened. And there is hope because, remember there was a time when women were not allowed to choose their own husbands, when they were not allowed to vote, when, they were not allowed to decide how many children they would have. They did not have access to literacy, let alone higher education. And
Yeah.
and women had to be veiled, either in Catholic faith or in Hindu faith or in any other faith, right? So there was a time when it seemed that things were really, really bad for women, but women fought back. They asked for the vote. Once they got one woman, one vote, that began to affect how we decided on policy. Policies that led to budgets for childcare, budgets that led to things like women's participation in health budgets. So they began to make sure that governments made budgets differently, rather than spending just on defense, on things like development, where there would be a clean drinking water, where there would be a good school in the district where the children family lived, where there would be low cost housing, low cost food, all this childcare, as I said, all these things. So things began to change because women began to participate in politics from the time they won the vote, right? And that is why we enjoy the freedoms we do now, because we have the best
Absolutely.
quality of life ever in the history of mankind. And that is because women began to push back and participate. And so that was one thing. The other frontier that we have made huge changes in is also that, remember that there was a time in the domestic violence movement where women were blamed and they were told that you are to blame, or people would say, oh, it's a private matter, we can't say anything. And now it's a crime. Now that is also a result of the women's movement, because many brave women came forward and spoke and spoke and spoke that this happened to me and I need to change it. And that's how we have domestic violence laws. The same thing, as you can see on things like education budgets. Women said that we need more education and girls have to be educated. And now we take it for granted. We say educate a girl and you educate a family. But people had to push for it and make people realize. And now it's not considered good form if you don't send your daughter to college. A daughter does go to college as much as a boy. But till 20 years ago, it was normal for girls not to be sent to college, and we married off. And so these are so many strides we've made because women united and spoke up and participated. The Me Too movement. Remember the Me Too movement?
Right.
It's so
Yes.
recent. And again, till then there was a silence around sexual harassment and also sexual abuse, right? People wouldn't talk about it. And suddenly, because three Hollywood actresses, Ashley Judd, Rosanna Arquette, Heera Sorvino, came forward and spoke, it led to so many people breaking the silence and speaking up. And, and that led to so much change. Legislation, understanding of sexual harassment, all the companies, corporates had to quickly change the laws, and they, because there is so much sexual harassment even in offices, right? And so don't think things haven't changed. I want to tell you there's hope because we are trying. And that is why we have to continue. And that is why I Kick and I Fly has been written as a social justice adventure novel.
Wow.
I've created this genre
I
myself.
Wow.
love
Okay.
that.
Love that. I
Wow.
love that.
So I call it that. And it's got cliffhangers in every chapter because all of you read the novel.
Yes.
Yes.
And every scene has a fight scene,
Yes.
there are kidnappings, there are complicated family relationships, there are betrayals and friendships, there's courage and there's fighting and there's winning, right? So I use a lot of cliffhangers, but I've also, the roots are very much grounded in social justice,
Yeah.
because I feel, there was a author you all know, Charles Dickens, right? And he wrote in the voice of young people, David Copperfield. He wrote Oliver Twist. And because he portrayed what society was like through the voice of young people, it brought about a sea change in the system itself for children. in England, right? From the foster care system to banning child labor. Now we think, oh, child labor is bad. How do you think the consciousness came that child labor is
Mm,
bad, right? So Charles Dickens,
mm,
you know. So I always feel that when people say I Kick and I Fly is a book for young adults, I say I Kick and I Fly is a book for everyone, 12 and
Absolutely.
up.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you know, it'll give you an insight into topics you may not want to
Mm,
discuss, and it'll do it in a way that you can not feel uncomfortable.
right. I agree.
So you were asking me what can be done, you know. You can, as I mentioned to you, share the book with people you know. I Kick and I Fly is a great tool to trigger conversations, bring about change, create awareness. Also, you know, you can go to my website, apneaap.org, because there are lots of resources there. Also on my personal website, ruchiragupta.com, where you can find ways to become social media ambassadors in this cause to end sex trafficking, to create a world in which no child or woman or man is bought or sold, because we can create it. We can create that world. You know, slavery used to be normal in the 19th century.
Mm,
Today, it's really bad to be a slave owner.
mm,
So, changing consciousness is the first step in activism. And
mm.
all of you can do so much. You can volunteer, you can intern, you can hold knowledge sharing, awareness creation parties where you can show a movie, show a book. For internship opportunities, you can look on my website, volunteer opportunities. You can show the movie Love Sonia or The Selling of Innocence to people and discuss the problem. And of course, you can sign my Freedom Pledge. It's on my website on ruchiragupta.com. You can follow me because there are always different campaigns I run, or I have friends who run campaigns which I will share. For example, in America, the Super Bowl is coming right now. And you know, that's a great time for us to campaign because a lot of men who come to watch the Super Bowl also check into hotels, and because the adrenaline is running high and there's a lot of hyper masculinity going on, they order in girls,
Oh my
and
God.
these girls are quite badly brutalized and all of that. So you know, someone friendly NGO ran a campaign once called "Purchase of Sex is Not a Sport." And so, you know, you'll find
Oh,
things like that because I'm part of so many movements and networks. And, you know, you all are so helpful by even holding this conversation today on International Women's Day. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a conversation at 6 o'clock on Amazon Live. So you can, if anyone wants to hear more, they can come on that one too.
sure.
Amazing.
I, I just
Such a, yeah. Yes, Abhishek.
yeah, just to carry on with the what you were telling is just your organization is there, Apne Aap, and there are so many other organizations. So, how much of a change are you seeing now on the ground, in the ground level, in the grassroots level? How much is the reality changing?
So in 1996, when I began working on the subject of ending sex trafficking, that time there were hardly any NGOs, and certainly the laws were in favor of the traffickers and the sex buyers. Today, we have a UN protocol to end trafficking in persons. 180 countries have signed that protocol and changed their laws to decriminalize the women in prostitution and criminalize the traffickers, including India. And so that's a huge gain. Also, we had asked for budgets to be allocated for vulnerable girls like Heera in my book, right? Who are preyed upon by traffickers because they are poor and they are marginalized and homeless and, you know, stricken by poverty and stuff. So, now there are budget allocations for such communities and groups across the world, and more NGOs are taking on the cause of sex trafficking. And you know, someone is doing rescue work, somebody is sending girls to school, somebody is training cops, somebody is organizing the women so that they have rights, and so everyone is doing a piece of it. It's not enough because the traffickers are much more organized than us. The United Nations says that it's the second largest organized crime
Mm,
in the world. It's beaten the drug trade. It's, you know, there's the arms trade and the drug trade, right? And then there's the trafficking trade. and it's generating billions of dollars. So they are inventing new ways to recruit girls, sell girls, recruit even buyers, groom buyers. So what they will do is go online, and any 12-year-old boy is surfing the net to do homework, and they'll suddenly a cartoon character will pop up on that boy's computer screen saying, "Want to have some fun with me?" And 5 seconds later, the boy is watching that girl be penetrated in different parts of her body, and she's crying, and she says, "Give me more." So he begins to think no means yes, and sex is connected to violence, and that's how the grooming becomes, and that's
Wow.
how they create the potential buyers.
Oh,
They
wow.
do the same with girls. They surf the net using AI for girls and boys who are saying, "I'm lonely, I hate my parents, I hate my body, I want to commit suicide," etc. And suddenly, through an army of fake chatbots, they create fake profiles and go online and say that, I will be your friend. You're very pretty. Oh, I like your blue shirt. And slowly, slowly, they'll groom the girl into sexualizing herself. And then from online, they will ask her to meet them in a hotel room or somewhere. And then it's on site. So this is becoming, they are so organized, and we just don't have the resources like them. But we know that when people come together, we can take on very big issues. And, I realized that there was a man who had pulled out a knife at me, and 22 prostituted women who I thought were completely powerless saved my life. And I described that in I Kick and I Fly also, that there's this marginalized community of nomads who are called criminal by the entire town. They don't even have their own land. They hardly have any jobs. They're living near railway tracks, no bathrooms in their houses, nothing. And yet, when they decide that they're going to send their daughters to school, how they come together and do so. It's a whole story, right? How
Yeah.
does this happen?
So true, and it's very heartbreaking as well, and kind of scary at that, because these days everybody is kind of on the internet all the time, and the vulnerability of kids is such a is at such a risk, and I mean,
And that's why I keep
where to
saying that
begin?
no, and that's why I keep saying that we have to break the silence, because only by breaking the silence can we change the end. We think secrets will protect our children or our young people. Secrets don't protect our children. Actually, secrets endanger them, because they make people allow traffickers and predators to work in the dark, right? So that's why I've written a hopeful book, and I've written it like an adventure story, because I think, it's an easy way to talk about a tough subject.
Brilliant. And Ruchira, I have been, following you. We all have been following you since a very long time. And when we had our first conversation at the Bangalore Literature Festival, and I see that you've been visiting lot of schools in
Oh,
Bihar, Delhi, and every city that you go to, Calcutta, especially since you are since the time you are in India, and I see those pictures wherein you are talking to kids and talking to them about all of this, and how important is that, when such conversations start, and it takes to a new level. So is Apne Aap also kind of thinking of making it, doing something with the schools wherein this becomes a mandatory subject to be talked about, and also self defense and karate, which is kind of which your organization has also been a part of, and all the girls are trained in that, and Heera, exemplarily displays the kung fu that she's learned, and how she's used it for self defense and also for saving other people. In the book, I am not going to give away the book, but so are there any also attempts that are being made for making such conversations in schools, and wherein kids of 12 plus years or 10 plus year girls are being a part of it, and even men who are boys who are part of it? So is Apne Aap also trying to do something like that? Just a curious question.
Yes, yes, it's happening actually. I've spoken in 52 schools and colleges in India, and I've spoken in a similar amount of schools and colleges in America. And soon, it'll start in France as well because the French edition of the book is coming out. And what is happening through these conversations is that it struck a chord. The teachers realize that the subject needs to be talked about. The students realize this subject needs to be talked about, but nobody is willing to take the lead. And this book has provided the answer, right? Because it's written as a fiction. And through the character of Heera and her life, so much can be discussed. And I had hoped for that. So when I go to a school and a little girl comes and tells me that how do I take on my peer group who bully me, then I can, because she's read I Kick and I Fly, and she says, I want to do that like Heera. So I said, oh, you can do that by forming your own peer group. Remember how Heera formed her peer group with Connie and others, or with,
Yeah,
Sadaf and Razia and
Sadaf.
others. I
Yeah.
said, you can create your own peer group. Don't try to get approval from the only peer group that exists. Or another girl says that, who can we, if we are so young and if we are just 14 or 15, how can we turn to anyone if something happens to us? So then I'm able to explain to them that who are the people you can reach out to. You can reach out to a friend. The friend might be able to go and talk to you can reach out to a teacher. You don't have to worry about something at home. A girl, in fact, in one of the schools I went to, spoke about something going on at home, and to her mother, not to her, but so they were able to have these conversations. In New York, I remember the Harlem Village Academy, and kids were literally coming and hugging me after I spoke, and they were just 14-year-old girls and they had read I Kick and I Fly, which is from a different country, different culture, and yet they connected. And so I think, at this time when teen mental health is such a big issue across the world, and this book needs to get into syllabus. And I was just in Calcutta, where it's going to be prescribed reading for the summer holidays in some schools across India. Then there's a
Wow.
university in Delhi which is going to put it into their syllabus on development narratives. And so different people are using it. So that's for college students, that's for adults. So there are 3 or 4 colleges in Pennsylvania. The education commissioner wants to put it into all the schools in Pennsylvania. And there's a discussion guide which goes with that. So, it also helps parents and teachers discuss things with kids. So, I dearly, dearly wanted to get into schools and colleges, which is why, though I'm so tired and I'm so exhausted really from going from school to school and, college to college, I'm still doing it because I know there's a girl or a boy out there who needs me to answer those questions, and I will always show up for that girl or boy. So, and if this gets into syllabuses, it'll help them.
Absolutely. What a fantastic and a daunting task that you have taken up, and you're doing it with so much of optimism and hope. And I think our generation and all the coming generations need to really learn this, that we lose hope very quickly, and we think that things are all bad, nothing is going good. But after having this conversation with you, I'm definitely thinking that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and we just need to cross that tunnel at times. And I think it is so important. It was so important to have this conversation with you today, Ruchira, because all those who have listened to us today, and those who will listen to this video after the Instagram live is over, it will be on our Instagram page and also on Ruchira's page, so you can anytime go and watch what we had talked to her, and how you can be a part of this entire program, and how you can be one who can help somewhere somebody
Yeah.
getting from getting sold or bought. So yes, and also there is an Instagram handle of Ruchira which you can follow, which we'll be also sharing on on this video, and we'll be talking about her organization, so you can also check out that. With that said, Ruchira, now also have a very quick rapid fire round which we want to take on with you. So, coming back to all the people who are reading and who have read I Kick and I Fly, because at Read A Kitaab Kitaab. Lot of people, read I Kick and I Fly, and when we saw your talk at the Bangalore Literature Festival, there were a lot of people from Read A Kitaab who were like fascinated and wanted to pick up the book because these conversations are so important. So yeah, Neeraj, would you like to start off with that?
Yeah, so from the reader's perspective, Ruchira, are you reading anything currently? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm reading Studies in Obedience. It's a book which was shortlisted for the Booker,
Yes.
and it's
Yes,
kind of scary, but it's also so beautifully written about how this woman who's groomed into obedience is becomes sort of like in servitude to her brother, and they could be in any time period in any land. You can't really make out. It's probably England, I suppose, or Canada, and how things flip for the brother eventually. It's kind of very interesting. So I'm reading that.
Oh, thank you so much.
And the other book I'm reading is Conversations on a Muddy Afternoon, Muddy Sunday or something by Alexander McCall Smith, which is light reading but very, very nice.
Okay.
I like the
amazing. So there are two recommendations as well from Ruchira that the group can have. These two books.
Thank you
yes.
so much for the recommendation.
Sakina's Kiss. Sakina's
Sakina's
Kiss
Kiss.
is about
Oh,
Vivek
patriarchy.
Shanbhag.
yeah,
Yeah.
Vivek
yeah.
Shanbhag. That's
Yeah.
an amazing book.
Mm, mm. I I would
And
like to
then
ask.
Quarter Life by Devika Rege is also excellent.
Yes, we've heard a lot about that book. I have not read that yet,
It's
but
set
I'm
in
sure I'm
Bombay.
going to pick that up. Hmm.
It's set in Bombay.
So,
Great.
uh, I would like to ask, like, who's your favorite author? If you have one or many, I
Okay,
don't
all
know.
time in the history of the world, in my history, like Jane Fonda, I mean Jane Austen is my favorite author. Absolutely, I love her irony and her wit. And of course, Louisa May Alcott was my favorite author when growing up. And I wanted to be like Jo from Little Women, a
Little
Hmm.
writer.
women.
Yeah.
And finally, I am. Among the Indian writers, I love Mahashweta Devi,
Hmm.
who has written about denotified criminal tribes, and I was kind of inspired by that. I love Rabindranath Tagore. I'm a Calcutta girl. And I love his humanism and how he writes about the possibility of how a human being can change. And you see that reflected in so much of my story, that the worst people change and how that happens. So yeah, those are my writers. Among the contemporary writers, I like Vivek Shanbhag a lot, as I mentioned. Devika Rege, I like a lot. I like Paul Lynch, of course.
Oh,
I just finished reading his
wow.
book.
Oh, oh
Wow.
God.
And his publisher and my publisher are the same in England. So we
Oh
Oh.
just met
my
up,
God.
which was nice. And,
No, no doubt. Both the no, I mean no questions. Both the books are such
I
exemplary
know.
books.
I like Isabelle Allende, it's pronounced. I love Gabriel Garcia
Mhm.
Marquez. So, you know,
So
how can I, like, there
all the people
can
who
be
are
no
listening to
greater.
Ruchira, the TBR is bloated, and
Bloated.
she's given
Ever
you
increasing TBR we have.
some crazy TBR suggestions to read to, and definitely difficult authors as well. So, yeah. So, but Ruchira, thank you so much for joining us. And any last message that you would want to give out to everyone on the eve of International Women's Day?
Yes, let's all work together to create a world in which no girl or woman is bought or sold. Join me in that journey and we'll do it.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you
Lovely.
Thank
so
you.
much, Ruchira.
Thank you
Such
so
a
much.
pleasure
Thank
to
you
have
so
you. Such a
much.
pleasure to have
I
you.
can listen to you all day. I mean, if I'm being very honest.
And
Thank
and
you.
I
That's a
w-
sweet compliment.
I would want to say that you make it sound like matter of factly, like you've done this amazing job, and you're so nonchalant about it, uh, and
I
so
mean, absolutely
inspired.
being threatened, and when you talk about it so casually, as if it's
Yes,
okay, everyone can
it's
do it, and I feel
yeah,
so inspired, and I'm
yeah.
going to take away so much from this interview. So thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much.
You're
much. Thank you so
welcome. You know,
much.
we have to have another conversation where you tell me. I ask you questions about the book, and you tell me what you think of the book.
Absolutely. Let's have that
Oh
Course,
my
of
God, that's
course.
an invite. We would love to have that conversation, Ruchira, anytime you want.
I'll do a rapid
Get
fire. You know,
yeah, and we are good with memory, so we will know all the characters
Yeah.
yes,
definitely.
Salman or
And
Manish. You know,
yeah, and so many people from the club would love to have a talk on this book, because I know, because of the brevity of time, and also the number of people who could join this conversation, only three of us are talking to you, but I'm sure there are a lot of readers from Reader Kitab who would love to interact with you, and also kind of they're working to change the narrative in some or the other way, and this interview is, and this conversation rather, is going to help them a lot. And we are also going to definitely do something as a club, as a community, wherein we can come together and take part, at least participate, maybe like you said, volunteer, talk about it, engage into conversations, do something, and take on a charge or some program. I think this would be our some few cents from the
some
community. And
contribution.
I think yeah, some contribution
Yes,
from the community. And
yes.
I think we all are so touched, or as well as you make us feel so proud that the courage that you show, and
Yes.
the kind of world that you are interacting with. All of these things, when they come to mind, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is fear,
Mm,
yeah.
of dying, of
mm,
being caught, or
mm,
something extremely
Blank
bad being happened if you are taking on this road. And you talk about it, and your book also kind of is written in, it starts off wherein it starts off with such a hard hitting tone, wherein
mm,
when I still remember when I started reading the book, and I read for 10-15 pages, I was literally into tears, and I was thinking, oh my God, will I be able to read this book
mm,
further, because this is breaking my heart. And I was actually choking. But as the pages went by, and then that book kind of completely changed its dimension, and it gives you
mm.
so much of hope, so much of positivity. And it also is kind of written as if it's a light-hearted
Mm.
book, but it
It
is
is
not.
It
I
is
think
not.
not. It is not.
so that is the power of writing, and that is
Mm.
the power of hope that you bring to people, and the work that by the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much,
you so
because
much.
it's
Thank you,
important
Ruchira. Very,
for a
very
writer to hear that.
extremely glad to have you here, and we look forward to have a conversation with you.
Yes. After the rapid
Yeah.
fires.
You can join
Yeah.
again on Amazon Live tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Sure,
Absolutely,
sure.
Sure.
absolutely. We would
Absolutely.
love to do that.
Yeah.
We would join that, and we would see your page, that how we could join. We will also pass it on to the people in
Take care.
the community,
Community.
so that if they could not join today, they could join tomorrow.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Thank you so much.
Talk
Thank you.
Thank you,
again.
Ruchira.
So
Bye.
Thank you for being
To
good.
with
be
Bye.
us. Have
So
a
continued.
great
much.
night,
Bye bye.
and
Happy
happy
Women's
International
Day.
Women's
Happy
Day once
International
again.
Thank
Women's
you.
Day.
Bye.
Happy
Thank you so
Women's Day.
much.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.